Hey everyone, this is CAR RAYROB.
Where I'm Ray.
And I'm Rob. And we want to welcome you to our podcast, Hello Movies, My Old Friend. Hello, movies. Hello, movies. Hello, movies. My old friend.
Yes, we are back with another episode of Hello Movies, My Old Friend.
On this podcast, Ray and I pick a movie that we loved when we were a kid, usually up to high school, and revisit it and see if it still holds up.
Yeah, we haven't seen it since then.
Exactly.
And we want to see what the deal is. And Rob, with this month's episode, we're tackling maybe the greatest threat to our nation today.
Wealth inequality.
No, worse. Boys playing women's sports.
Oh, God.
We're watching Ladybugs.
We're watching Ladybugs, everybody.
Yeah, so I don't know if that topic is heavy nowadays, but I know it's not heavy. We got Rodney Dangerfield in the house.
Yep. He's gonna take this scourge that everybody seems to think is a thing and really turn it on its head. But we remember this being a fun little movie.
Yeah.
Jonathan Brandis, unfortunately late Jonathan Brandis, sadly.
Yeah. That is sad. He was really seemed hugely popular when we were kids.
Oh man, SEAQUEST DSV.
I was gonna say SEAQUEST. Yeah.
NEVERENDING Story was
right,
the second one he
course.
was in.
Yes.
Yeah, he was. Jonathan Brandis was everywhere for a minute, and but it also stars Vinessa Shaw, who was also in Hocus Pocus.
Love her in that.
Exactly, and Jack Harry.
Yes, I think so.
Is also in this movie.
I don't really remember anybody else in this movie. That might just be those four.
Yeah,
the whole thing.
Yeah, that's fair. I know there's other people in the movie, but I don't remember who they are. But as Ray said, we do remember the basic storyline. Jonathan Brandis is a male soccer player,
right?
Who is recruited by Rodney Dangerfield.
Is he his
specifically
stepdad or something? Or
is
no?
he?
I don't remember.
I don't remember how they're related. Yeah, that's a fair
are.
point. And he recruits Jonathan Brandis onto this all-girls soccer team to try to make them better.
Yes.
Right. So yeah, but I still think, isn't Vinessa Shaw good too? I don't remember.
Yeah,
that plays
I don't.
Out.
Yeah, a lot of the I'm not connecting a lot of the dots of the plot.
Yeah.
So, hey, we're gonna find that out, I guess. I don't remember necessarily how it ends, but I imagine he gets exposed at one point and the team has to win without him. But
definitely, as you would think. Yeah.
Now, one thing I do wonder, just 1992 when this movie came out, is I wonder if some of the jokes are going to age well. We shall see.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. This is definitely a movie that I'm maybe leaning towards not aging well for us. I actually looked up the Rotten Tomato score. It is 14%.
Wow, that's low.
That is low. But again, Rotten Tomatoes
doesn't mean everything.
Doesn't mean much to us.
We were definitely part of the 14% when we were a kid that liked it. So.
Exactly. So let's see. It could age well. It could have just been a movie that was before its time. Maybe this was a movie that was before its time,
or
clearly.
Never had a time,
or never had a time. Exactly. But because of that, we are going to go find that out right now, and you should too. You should pause the podcast right now. Go check out Ladybugs. See if it still holds up for you. And come back, unpause the podcast, and see if Ray and I think it holds up too.
Ray and Rob are currently watching the film. You may be also watching the film. If you're not, then you're listening to me say that Ray and Rob are watching the film. They'll be right back when they're done watching the film.
Man, I had forgotten just how many sex jokes were in this movie. I mean, it was almost to an absurd level, right? We should have made this a drinking game.
I don't think we'd be able to record tonight if that would have to wait a couple days for the hangover to get off. But I mean, that's Rodney Dangerfield though, right? Like, isn't that just like give him a mic and let him go?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's probably what they did, when they cast him in this movie, but they were kind of getting back to school, Rodney Dangerfield, and what I would call a family movie
Yeah.
to a certain degree. But,
The 92 family movie for
yeah,
sure.
definitely a 92 family movie. So, yeah, I do think it just it felt forced at times. I'm going to admit it.
Yeah,
It felt forced.
I think a lot of things in this movie felt forced, and we'll probably have to get to that. But
Yeah.
I mean, I definitely feel like there were some times where like there's the setup of a scene is just so that the end of the scene can give Rodney Dangerfield like
A
30
blackout
seconds
joke.
of like turn the lights off, put a spotlight on him, and give him 30 seconds of stand up for and then we'll go on to the next scene.
Yeah.
And kind of individually they're funny, but like they're just like it's a lot of calling people ugly. It's a lot of just which is it kind of works a little bit different in stand up because you're not talking about somebody that you actually know or see.
Right.
But when like the person that he's making fun of is right in front of him, it's like it comes off a little different. It's a little like meaner than what I classically think of as Rodney Dangerfield.
Sure. I get this movie being made because this was clearly an era of this type of like family sports movie.
Yeah, we had some great ones when we were kids.
We did.
Sandlot, Little Giants.
Little Giants.
And then right behind them, Ladybugs.
No, this would be a distant 12th, I'd imagine.
Yeah, not quite top 10. I get it. Not quite top 10.
Yeah. I have to say, we kind of did this with Best of the Best, but I think we need to jump out in front of this one, and we're gonna start out this episode with I don't think this held up for me.
The feels that I remember did not feel this time, or like the nostalgic bug didn't get its opportunity to bite me with this movie.
Yeah, no, not at all. But I think there's a lot of reasons why, and we mentioned one. There was just that forced level of comedy where I do feel like everything was a joke, but it was. I know it sounds weird. It's like, everything's a joke, so it should be hilarious. But it's like there were so many jokes, it almost felt like there were no jokes because it was just constant.
Yeah. It's like you become numb to it. There's no nuance, and like the movie doesn't really ever like get to breathe at all or anything. It's just it's just like I said, it just everything kind of gets to feel a little forced.
Yeah.
Because I mean, there's a couple things I liked. I think in the third act there's some good lines, and their final this is like a Bad News Bears type movie, right? Where like Rodney Dangerfield is slowly changing this bad soccer team into a good team. I won't say Rodney's doing it. He's not really doing much of anything as the coach. I guess Jonathan Brandis' character is kind of doing that, but so the end of the movie has some parts I'm like, this is okay, this is working a little bit, but very, very little, very, very short term.
Well, yeah, and if you think of like the multiple arc kind of in the movie, you've got Matthew, Jonathan Brandis' character, and then you've got Rodney Dangerfield's character. I would say they're probably the two main characters that you're dealing with. A little bit of the side characters, you got Kim, she does have a bit of an arc.
Yeah, but she's not in the movie as much as I kind of remember her being. Yeah. Like I kind of thought this was like, like one of those movies where like Jonathan Brandis is slowly wooing her over,
right?
Kind of, as a girl, but then he has to admit that he's a guy. But I'm like, no, they really only share like one real scene together.
Yeah, so it's like let's take that track first. Then let's take Matthew, and yeah, so it's like he gets drawn into this scheme, this Rodney Dangerfield scheme, and so he's clearly, at least as far as we are told, he's having some behavioral issues, and stuff like that, which is why he got kicked off the boys soccer team that he was on. And so, but he is also, attracted to Kim through school. We learned that, with his friend throwing the football and all that crap. And so, yes, he has his eye on her, and you're right. This track should, at least in some regards, be like him wooing her. Well, then he becomes Martha, for the team, and then you barely see them interact. Yeah. Really, like there's some times on the field where he'll come up and he'll pat her on the back. It's like, oh, you'll get him next. And once he stops being a jerk, because I guess I should say that, like that first game where
he was a ball hog.
Right, he was a ball hog. He was treating everybody like garbage, yelling at everybody. Everybody really hated Martha. But then after that, then he kind of takes on this coaching role. And there's a couple of times when you see him interact with Kim. But then, later in the movie when she shows up at the door, to hang out with Martha, and then it's like, oh, you're my best friend. And all, it's like, really?
What?
Really?
Yeah.
Like, This seems so out of nowhere.
I know. I kind of wrote like the movie is clearly investing in the wrong things because this has no weight to it.
Right.
You know, like this relationship that's getting built up between Martha and Kim has no weight to it. But at the end of the day, it doesn't really need it because when she finds out that he's a boy, it's off screen.
Right.
And she doesn't really seem to ever care. So it's
Yeah.
like, I guess we don't have to build up anything to like, you know, classic movie structure would be they become good friends. He has to admit that he's a boy. She gets really upset. Now he's got to win her back again. But they just skipped that whole second half there.
Well, absolutely. Well, do you remember the movie Just One of the Guys?
Yeah, vaguely.
With Joyce Hauser, William Zabka's in it.
Yeah.
So that's a movie that it's the reverse. You know, she's obviously becomes a guy and then, you know, befriends another guy because she's, you know, writing the article or
Mulan.
whatever. Right. And so that movie kind of has a similar arc in a way, but it does it so much better in that regard, because you're right, like it kind of gets to that point when like that is the crux of the thing. It's like I'm not actually a guy, I'm a girl. It's, you know, and like in that movie they get to that point where like the guy thinks that the Joyce Hauser character as a guy is gay because it's like, oh, you're coming on to me or whatever.
Right.
And you know, so but none of that is in this movie.
No.
Like there's nothing there in that. So it's like, you know, they're working so hard to kind of put these two together, and it just there's no real tension in any of it.
No, and it would be such classic, easy, you know, I don't want to say low-hanging fruit, but if you do it right, like that would be a good arc for this movie for Jonathan Brandis' character to, like, you know, grow up and get Kim to like him and whatever. No, they don't do it. So then I started thinking, like, well, what are they investing screen time into? Because they didn't invest in that arc.
Right.
So it must be with Jonathan and Chester, Rodney Dangerfield's character, their arc together as you know, potential stepdad, stepson.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't even say they were doing that. Like, this is no Dutch in that regard.
No, yep.
You know what I mean?
Another great movie, great example of that. Yep.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't say they did that much of that either. I mean, once really
they don't really even dislike each other that much.
Well, the funny thing is once the Matthew character, Jonathan Brandis, has that bad game, and he, you know, has the weird off kilter, for me at least, like the on again, off again, like I'm going to do this, I'm going to quit, or whatever. And then he's finally back in, where, you know, the scene where Chester's going to come clean to his mom, tell him or tell her he didn't get the promotion and all of that.
Can't get married
yet. And then Jonathan Brandis breaks in and is like, no, everything's, you know, we're doing it. It's great. He saves the day, and they're going to keep doing it. Pretty much after that, they're fine.
Right.
So it's like, you know, you take an, you know, and I get, like, you know, maybe not making the whole arc of the movie that, because, you know, you do have to have them on the same page, I guess, early enough that they can work together to fix the team. But it does make their relationship kind of just bleh for the rest of the movie.
Right. It does. There's nothing to overcome.
Right.
And even, I mean, just, I guess, you know, we say that things were like paper thin, and it's like, or just too easily gained. Like some of the jokes were too easy to gain.
Yeah.
The drama tension scenes, like that they tried to add in, like were too easily solved. Like they didn't hold drama well. Like even like, or I'm like, okay, once you kind of figure out that Rodney Dangerfield's going to try to get, you know, Matt to become Martha. Like, I'm like, all right, how is he going to get him to do this?
Right.
And again, it kind of happens off screen. It's like, there's no way you're going to get me to do that. Next scene, he's doing that. And you're just like, you know, cut, he's doing that. And it's like, well, how? Like, how did you convince a teenage boy to pretend to be a girl on the soccer team?
Yeah. And
I don't know.
Yeah. And, you know, and then you've got the Rodney Dangerfield side of everything. He was the star. So maybe you're like, okay, like maybe Rodney Dangerfield. They put it all into him, and that was it, you know? And even his motives are kind of weird. So he needs to get a promotion so that his fiance will marry him, or maybe that's him saying that or her saying that. We don't really know.
Yeah, it's unclear about who's like who wants this promotion. Like, is he like, I can't support you until I get promotion, so I don't want to marry you, and I can, like, there's a knight in shining armor thing there, or is it like she won't marry him because he's not rich enough, and that's not cool, or just like, what is the deal? Yeah,
because if it's that, where it's like, oh, you're not rich enough to marry me yet, I mean, that makes her look really bad. Like, but I don't know if I feel like, I don't know. It's very weird. But obviously he gets up, you know, getting this opportunity to win the promotion, more or less, by through this soccer team.
He's got to win the championship,
right? And you know, you're right. He kind of ends up in this like bad news bears situation, but it's like the team is bad, but it's like they're not necessarily bad kids in any way.
No.
It's just like they've all kind of got these like weird little things,
Yeah.
like, oh, Chew likes butterflies.
She gets
Okay.
distracted.
Right. Pester thinks she's ugly, so she has no confidence.
Right.
The other girl, I don't remember her name, but she's like the beauty queen type, and
Yeah.
it's like, and then there's like 5 or 6 faceless girls on this team that you're just like, you're just there.
They're not investing in
And there's
anything.
Larimer,
Yeah.
Larimer, who was like the girl who was like the carryover from when they were good. So you'd think like, okay, so he's kind of got to interact with all of these girls and kind of make
each one better.
make them better, and he really doesn't. Like
No.
as a coach, so like there's really no arc for him in that regard because he's not really
Yeah.
doing any of the work.
Right. Yeah. You mentioned like the Bad News Bears, but Bad News Bears had Walter Matthau,
Right.
and that head coach had stuff to overcome.
Right.
Like he was kind of a bad dude, right? Like, he was an
Right.
alcoholic or whatever and
Mhm.
stuff. But like really, Rodney Dangerfield, like kind of like we described, like he's not in this for the wrong reasons necessarily.
No,
Like he's
no.
like, all right, well, if I coach this team and I do a good job, then I'll get a promotion. I get to marry my wife. So it's like, all right, if I do good with these kids, I'll get some good stuff on the back end. So it's like, that's fair. Like that's
Right.
it's not like he's not taking advantage of these kids in any way. It's like he's got to do a
No.
good job and coach them. So it's like he doesn't really have an arc to overcome in that way. Like, so it's not like, there's no depth to that. It's just like, all right, do your thing.
Right.
But then you're right. Like he doesn't know soccer, so
Right.
he can't help them.
Mm-mm.
Now, I guess you could maybe make the argument he kind of helps Penny a little bit,
Mm-hmm.
Pester by
That's probably the closest.
Yeah.
Yeah, is Penny.
and even though like nowadays I think you would call it a bit shallow.
Oh
He's
my
like,
god!
don't-
You took her glasses
Yeah.
off. That's it. You solved it all. She's not.
Put her
Uggo.
hair down.
She's not an uggo anymore.
But I
she
still
took her glasses off.
But 10 things I hate about you style stuff. But I still think I thought that scene was fine. I thought Rodney Dangerfield did a good job of coming across as like grandfatherly to me in that scene.
Yeah,
I
perfectly fine.
I'll give him credit for it. But other than that, like Jonathan Brandis, like kind of is the one that fixes the rest of the characters. Like
Right.
he puts butterflies on the ball so Chew can focus on the ball and
Right.
kick it and go scores a goal. And by the end of the season, they showed a couple scenes where like the girls were really good at communicating to each other, like who they were passing to and stuff. So you could kind of see they learned the game. But all that came through Jonathan Brandis, and most of it came off screen.
Right.
Like we didn't really see them achieve that stuff through practice or anything.
Sure. And I do think if you want to say Rodney Dangerfield ended up with an arc of any kind, it was probably more in regards to his boss.
Yes.
And
I do think
with
that
Kim.
worked for me.
I do.
That was
I
the
can
best
agree.
thread
I
of the
think I can
movie.
agree with you. It's probably the one thread in the movie that worked was him, Rodney Dangerfield, interacting with his boss in regards to Kim, the daughter, and the way that his boss kind of kept putting her down and wanting to kid her out of the game, and I just want to win, and
He's like, my daughter's embarrassing. Don't play her or you're fired.
Right.
So he forced Rodney Dangerfield to bench Kim, and he does bench her in the regular season.
right. And then like when he brings her back, against his wishes in the finals and in the final game and all of that, but it gives Rodney Dangerfield the opportunity, really, to probably deliver the best line of the movie, which is, what good is being the best if it brings out the worst in you?
It was a great line, and he delivered it well. I'll
Right.
tell you what, I'm like, I could use that line in real life. That's a good line.
It is, and it's probably, it's like, I almost feel like they wrote this movie with that line in mind.
Start
It's
there
like,
and go
I got
backwards.
this one line, and I got to get it in, and this is it. We don't care what we build around it. We just got to get to this line. But, and so he stands up to his boss, and, all of this, and they win the game.
Yeah.
Jonathan Brandis doesn't enter, which is, I think that is, as far as a team goes, like there is that arc as well, where it's like we don't need the
Yeah.
boy to win, like, and they win on their own without Jonathan Brandis. But I'm not gonna lie, they like blow that entire thing out of the water with the last gag when like, oh, now we've got a boy or we've got a girls softball team and it's all boys. You don't
Yeah.
have one girl on there. I'm just
Yeah.
like, oh my god, this just became a Daily Wire movie.
They literally sacrificed like the whole arc of the movie for one little joke at the end that just like no longer like aligns with the characters. But
Right.
It's just like for just one cheap gag as you kind of get out with a laugh. But I was like, not worth it. Like
No.
the ending of the movie would have been fine the way it was. But I thought that again, a lot of the stuff like just doesn't really hit. Like I will say one thing that did hit me, like the nostalgic vibes, or the thing that I was like, this is one thing I remember from the kids was, when kind of that last half of the championship game and all the girls are kind of having their little arc, like Penny takes her glasses off again, and she's good at soccer now. I'm like, she's good at soccer because she can't see the ball now? Okay.
Right. I thought I wrote that down too. Can she even see? That's
Yeah.
what I wrote.
Yeah, but then, and then...
But she's hot while she's doing it.
Of course.
So it's okay.
Then the girl who, like, was the beauty pageant girl, like, when she broke her nail, though. That's what
right.
You know, she gets up, she's like,
Sure.
Mom! That bitch broke my nail. And then she's like, she broke your nail? And then the mom talks
They
to the crowd.
broke her nail.
And then the whole crowd starts chanting, like, get those nail breakers. Get like that. I remembered from a kid, like, clear as day. I almost started chanting. I was like, all right, I'm into this.
Yeah.
That was like those few seconds where that was right after the Rodney Dangerfield line. So I was like, all right, I'm into this. I might get into this movie real late. And then Kim was going to have her moment, you know, because her whole moment has been she sucks. That's why the dad wanted her benched. Every time she kicks the ball, it goes like 100 miles over the goals, you know, and it's nowhere near, you know, scoring. It's embarrassing. It's knocking people out. It's hitting cars. It's horrible.
Right.
And then she's got a chance at a penalty kick, and there's no emotional beat to, like, that's going to say, like, all right, she's going to make this kick now because of Rodney Dangerfield teaching her this, or Jonathan Brandis giving her this advice. There's nothing there, and then she kicks it and makes it, and you're like, well, good, I'm glad you made it. Now your dad's happy, but, like, you missed the chance of, like, a payoff here.
Right.
How did you miss this?
Yeah. No, and it goes to show just they put very little effort into any of that. You know, any arc really, you know, any weakness and need payoff, they really did just not put in the effort. It's really paper thin. But I will say, you know, kind of going back to, you know, the nostalgia element of it and the thing that, you know, you remember from a kid that kind of like made you go, oh, you're gonna laugh.
I know what you're gonna say.
You're gonna laugh. It's the dream montage.
Yeah.
With Jonathan Brandis and Kim. I don't know why I remember that.
I know why you remember it. But I was
like, man. I mean, obviously, as a young child, you know, you're kind of a kid, you know, young man coming into his own. You're like, you know, I thought, you know, Kim was cute when I watched this movie.
We were like 11 and she was 16, so of course.
Probably, heck yeah.
She has a running, like, a Baywatch scene where she's running in a bikini, and you're like, I'm like, now when I'm watching, I'm like, wait, how old is she?
We can't be watching this. This is not okay.
All right.
We've reached that age. This is not okay.
It did seem like it would be like, because I went to look up, I'm like, she's not 18 when she filmed this.
Yeah, no, neither. So, her and Jonathan Brandis both, I think, were 16.
Yeah, so I'm like, this is a little weird.
Yeah.
But I don't think you would do that nowadays.
No. But, you know, but even the rest of it where it's like, you know, have the dinner and like running and like getting on the private jet or whatever. I don't know why, but I just totally remembered that, you know, from my childhood viewings of this movie. So, you know, take from that what you will.
I know what I'm taking from that, but there, you know, some other things is like, I don't feel like Jonathan Brandis was Martha as much as, I keep saying Marta, but it's like Martha.
Right.
Was Martha as much as I remember. Like, I just feel like just a couple of the scenes when he's actually playing soccer, and he doesn't really even try to be a girl. Like, he doesn't change his voice for most of the time he's talking as Martha.
Yeah.
Like, I don't think he shaved his legs or anything like that. Like, you know, there's nothing that was showing that he was trying to, like, be a girl. Like, they didn't use, like, fake boobs or anything.
Right.
So it was just like, I'm like, how are the people buying this? Mm-hmm. Just like when Rodney Dangerfield goes to pick him up, I'm like, how are they buying this?
Right. No, it is so funny. That whole sequence was hilarious because it's like, okay, you could tell a guy wrote this movie because it's like, you know, Jonathan Brandis calls him up and is like, oh, we're all over here. We're all going to go skinny dip. They all want to go skinny dipping. And it's like
all the girls at a sleepover
going skinny dipping. This is what happens, right? Oh, dear penthouse. Like, but you know, kind of going back to what we've said about, you know, no tension, you know, he makes that phone call and it's like, okay, you know,
how are they going to get out of this mess?
Right. Kim's mom won't let anybody leave unless their parents come. So Rodney Dangerfield just shows up immediately dressed as a woman, you know, but it's so bad. There's nothing, you know what I mean?
He's not wearing makeup or prosthetics.
Right.
He has a hat on.
With like a little veil in front of the face.
See-through veil.
Yeah, and he's like, there's no way this lady's not going to recognize that this is Chester, the soccer coach.
He would have been better with a fake mustache and saying he's Martha's dad. Like,
right.
He didn't
get a wig or something.
It obviously wasn't going to take much.
Yeah, seriously. Yeah, but again, it kind of goes back to what we said earlier about it's like we needed a way out of this. We got it quick, and it was like the reverse gag. Like, oh well, now we get to make Rodney dress like a woman. Here it is
for 3 seconds.
Right. And
but it's like it's a 2-minute scene. It's like, well, why even interject this drama for a 1.5-minute payoff? It's like, is the joke of Rodney Dangerfield in a dress for 30 seconds worth it? And I'm like, no, it's not. I mean, it's just a waste of time.
Yeah.
It's whatever.
Yeah, but
but they could have done something there. They could like show Jonathan Brandis stuck in the house, dodging the girls, trying not to be seen. Like,
right.
I don't know, but like add some drama.
Yeah, you're right, because we went from the phone call to the pickup, nothing in the middle, and but at least later, they it was kind of expected, but they had to do the the Martha Matthew back and forth gag, like, oh, I got to be Martha in one room and Matthew in another, and this is how I have to keep going back and forth and changing.
Like the Mrs. Doubtfire classic scene, the ending where he's got to be Mrs. Doubtfire and himself, Mrs. Doubtfire, and then he gets stuck and he doesn't do it right.
Right, exactly. Like it was very expected, and but at least they put the effort in. Into that scene, and it ended the way that you would expect it to. They got busted, and that was that. So it's, it's just lazy. Maybe we should call this Ladybugs instead of Ladybugs, because I do feel like there was just there's just a little bit of not trying too hard. And then because we brought it up, there's a lot of great movies like this from this era. You think about something like Little Giants. You brought up Little Giants earlier. Which is the reverse, where it's like they bring in the girl on the boys' team.
Right.
Which is kind of an interesting, thing, because obviously the flashpoint now is boys and girls sports, woohoo! But
all 10 of them in the entire world,
right? Exactly. And then, but like I said, you got Little Giants, which is the reverse, where they have to bring the girl in because the girl is good at football, and and they make that work. Like as a movie, like they were able to make that work.
Well, and that's one thing, like kind of with where we're at in this world today like this movie really isn't making any kind of commentary to me on anything like that.
Well,
though
no,
I think
wouldn't at the time. Yeah.
Well, no, but I mean, but it's not even. I don't even know if the movie is saying that boys are better than girls at sports. I think like Rodney Dangerfield's character uses Matthew out of circumstance. He needs somebody that's good at soccer,
right?
And that's the only person he knows at that
Bess
age.
A son that is good at soccer. If Bess had a daughter that was good at soccer,
he would have used her. Yeah,
right.
But I feel like nowadays people would project this movie differently, and even we might have been doing that in the before section.
Sure.
But I don't think that the movie's not necessarily saying like that. It's just more like, this is a fun, awkward situation. Let's make a movie about it.
Well, to be fair, in the before section we hadn't seen it, so we didn't know. Like we couldn't remember.
In a long time,
we didn't know. So
I'm saying that, but I'm saying like I think there's a lot of that kind of stuff where people project onto these movies like what they were saying or what they're doing. With saying that men are better than women at sports or whatever, and. I watched this movie. One thing I was like, I don't know if the movie ever really says that. Like, yes, Jonathan Brandis is good at soccer, in the movie, but I don't know. Like I said, I don't think Chester was using him to win because he was a boy. He was just the only person he knew that could do it.
Right, which I completely agree with, but which is why it's so unfortunate that they had to do the blackout joke at the end of the movie. That it was like,
because the girls did it on their own,
right?
And then you're just gonna be like, well, John, now he's gonna go back to.
No, it's all boys are actually better than girls. That's why we're doing it.
Yeah, No,
like,
Rodney Dangerfield learned that if you get every individual kid better, your team can overcome.
Yeah,
he wouldn't go and just cheat on the very next sport he coached.
Yeah, but you're right. No, I think it is. I think it's a very interesting point because as a culture, we are so. Pop culture references are so ingrained in us, whether we realize it or not. And I it's probably why it's easy for people to demonize this situation now is because of movies like this. Not that it's their fault.
Right.
I'm not saying
or how you think you remember movies
or
like
how
this.
you think you remember movies like that. Exactly. But it's like, it almost becomes like a Pavlovian response, where it's like you say a word or a situation or whatever the outrage du jour is supposed to be, and like this is what it is. So it's just easy to it's just funny in some regards how movies can be used in that way.
Well, Rob, now we have seen the movie.
Yep.
So we've watched it. We've talked about it. Let's wrap up this conversation on Ladybugs, as you would call it. All right. So we usually kind of, I think we've given away our hand, but just one little wrap up. Did the movie hold up for you?
No, definitely not. It definitely did not. It's as I said,
neither.
Distance 12.
Yeah. We have so many other. Like I said, I don't know when the last time I seen Ladybug or Little Giants was. I think I've seen it more recent than what we've kind of give the rules for this podcast.
Yeah.
But I have no doubt.
Sandlot.
Yeah,
Sandlot's
I've
another
seen
one.
Man-
I've
yeah.
definitely seen the
I saw
Sandlot.
Sandlot in the corner of the bar this weekend. So, so I know that movie holds up. I'm fairly confident Little Giants would definitely hold up. I've seen it too recent to doubt that.
Sure.
But this one doesn't hold up. It just
Yeah.
doesn't. There's not enough there.
Yeah, no, I wish they had done a little bit more, with especially with the Matthew Kim
Yeah,
relationship.
get to know the kids on the team a bit.
Yeah, because I think that's there's just across the board. I feel like all the kids are kind of faceless, even though they have quote unquote personality problems, weaknesses, needs, whatever. Like it just they didn't really do much with it. And as a kid, maybe you're not thinking about that.
No, you aren't.
So
We
for
aren't.
our nostalgic think, we're just like, oh, Rodney Dangerfield is funny. He says this funny joke.
Can they win the championship they wanted? I'm happy.
Right, exactly. But I do think other movies like The Sandlot, like Little Giants, they just do a better job of taking those kid characters and making them more relatable to kids. So you can kind of see yourself in those roles, and it's just just funner to watch, and they're more filled out. They're more just better characters overall.
All right, Rob. Well, Ladybugs was a little bit disappointing for us, but I think we've talked about as much as we can say about it.
As much as I can stomach.
We're done, but the audience is not done. They cannot be a bunch of lazy bugs. They have to make sure before they're done with this podcast listening experience, they like the podcast. Subscribe to the podcast. Leave us a 5-star review if you're able to. If you do, we're going to read that review live on air someday. You guys can email us if you want to reach out to me and Rob at carrayrob@gmail.com or reach out to us on Blue Sky at carrayrob.
Absolutely. If you would also share the podcast, that would be amazing. We are really trying to grow our community, and any help that you can give us would be greatly appreciated. If there is a comment section on whatever platform you are on, by all means, leave us a comment and let us know what you thought of Ladybugs. Did it hold up? Did it not? What is your favorite kids sports movie? Ray and I would love to hear all about that.
I will debate you on that.
And see what the numbers are, what the vote totals look like on that. We will be back next week with a very special episode of Say Hello to My Little Film.
It's the 5th week of the month.
It's the 5th week of the month. So that means Mr. Kitty Kaiju will be in studio for a special kids edition of Say Hello, where we will be watching The Last Starfighter.
Ooh, I've never seen that either.
And no, that's something.
UK are in the same boat.
Exactly. It's going to be super interesting to see how that goes. But then we will be back in 2 weeks, where we will be back with first episode of July of Say Hello to My Little Film again. And it will be my episode. Special because it is my birthday month.
Oh no, when it's your birthday month, you make me watch bad things.
That is exactly what is going to happen
no.
now. You are not getting out of it. It is now going to be a tradition here on CAR RAYROB. You are going to be watching something that you are not going to want to watch. None of you are going to want to miss it. But until then, this is CAR RAYROB.
Or I'm Ray.
And I'm Rob. And remember, be defined by the films you love, not the ones you hate. Hello, movies. Hello, movies. Hello, movies. My